As always, a huge thank you to Starboard, who are once again this season's main sponsors. Starboard has a history of innovation across water sports, starting in 1994 by revolutionising the design of windsurf boards, and they've brought that bang up to date recently, bringing foil windsurfing onto the Olympic stage with their IQ foil package. Starboard got behind stand-up paddleboarding in a huge way in the early days and continue to lead the industry to reduce their environmental impact. Their focus on innovation brought them 7 world champions at the ICF Worlds last year, and all of them were using their Lima paddle range. They continue to improve and innovate their boards and their paddles for all abilities across all flavours of the sport, including adventure. And you can find out more about Starboard through their website, which is linked to in the show notes. Welcome to the SUPfm podcast with me, Simon Hutchinson. Every week, I chat with interesting people from the SUP world, or to people who can help us, the paddlers of the SUP tribe, to improve and to maximise our own experiences and our love of both the sport and the water. Every episode is designed to inspire or to help you get a deeper immersion into the sport through my conversations with leading athletes, scientists, explorers, TED speakers, and New York Times best-selling authors. And not forgetting some of the many insanely inspiring distance paddlers we've routinely had on the show. And today I'm chatting with Tanvi Jagadish, who's also known, at least on Instagram, as Indian Surfer Girl. Tanvi is a racer who the current world-leading SUP athlete, April Zilg, calls inspirational, and her love of the water, surfing and SUP, and her determination to follow her life's purpose and not buckle down to powerful family and social expectations has led to her becoming India's first representative as an athlete on the ISA world stage at championships, first in Fiji and then in Denmark. It's led to podium placements in surf and race competitions in the US and Asia, and her appearances speaking on the TED stage. Oh yeah, and she's also won the Indian National Championship 7 times and co-founded a SUP and surf school to share the stoke, particularly with girls. Tanvi has broken down real and long-standing barriers in a meaningful way, and it was my privilege to chat with international role model and international SUP racer Tanvi Jagadish. Hi Tanvi, welcome to SUPfm.
Hello, namaste from India.
Well, really appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and you've made a real splash worldwide, putting India on the map as a destination for stand-up paddling and racing. And you've represented your country in the sport on the international stage. You've been on the podium for some competitions in the US, and I understand that in March this year you competed in the Indian National Championships, where you achieved your 7th national title. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Most importantly, though, by doing what you've done through competition, through being entrepreneurial, through the Cadell Surf School, and being a leader for water sports, you've been an important role model, not just for girls and women across the world, but specifically as a role model in India, where you've showed that surf and SUP and ocean sports is not just for men. It's acceptable for women to get out on the water. So I want to talk to you about how you got onto the water, your racing, and also about being a role model a little later. So just to sort of unpack the incredible story, in terms of surfing, how did surfing start in India? Because that hasn't been around for that long, has it?
Yeah, I think the surfing initially in India started by early 2000. So 2000, by Surfing Swami. He's one of a huge inspiration in my life as well. He's also, his main name is Jack Hebner. So he is one of the main reason we have surfing in our country, and the surf school he established, that's the first surf school in India, was right beside where my grandparents stay. So that's how lucky I was to, like, introduced to and get to like learn from the legend itself.
Mm.
I would go stand up paddling with him, and he used to have such wonderful conversation, and he was more like a father for me. And when he passed away few years back, it was very very bad, because the impact he had on me and the whole surfing community to grow in the country in such a beautiful way. Like, the one of the main thing I learned like with him was the balance in life. It's like you don't need to surf all day and tell your parents that you don't want to do anything. You have to have a balance, and
Mm.
it comes with discipline and a lot of things. It would like not end in a one call, but I learned a huge lesson from Surfing Swami, and he's one of the main reason we have surfing in our country. And I'm really sad that not a lot of people know about it, because this sport is growing really fast in India right
Mm.
now, because of the social media, Instagram especially, and a lot of influencers coming on board. But this is one of the main reason surfing exists in the country, and it's grown in such a beautiful way.
So Jack Hebden it was, wasn't it? And he was one of
Yeah,
the first generation surfers. And I think he came out of Jacksonville Beach in Florida. Originally, he was a member of the North Florida's first surf club there, and
yeah.
one of the pioneers. So he was one of the East Coast surfers, basically. But he came out to India, identified some of these spots, and then he also went out to other locations in India trying to identify all of those breaks. So, if there's a godfather of surf in India, it's basically Jack
Surfing
Hebden.
Swami,
And
yes.
yeah, and he even established the governing body, I think, for surfing out there.
Yeah, he did. He
Surf
did. Yes.
brand and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it seems like from his school, from his club that he founded, the Mantra Club there,
Yeah.
there are other clubs and instructors and organizations just popping up, and I presume down the coast in other locations in India as well.
Yes, yes. There are many surf schools in India right now, and they're doing really good. And the thing is, the community of surfing in India is so beautiful. Like, everybody's so nice. So it is a very beautiful community, and the community is growing so beautifully. We have very
Mm.
young surfers, and we have very old surfers. We have like surfers in the middle, and like there's like a beautiful community. So yeah, it's like we are all like inspiring each other to grow.
Absolutely, and talking about inspiring, so I was looking at some of the competitions the Mantra Club, the original club do,
Yes.
and there's a Grom festival, and the second prize winner was sort of a tiny
Yeah.
little girl. I mean, it really is sort of quite democratic in terms of involving both sexes. It doesn't seem to have those sort of confines there. That's really important. You said that it's not just about surfing all day. There has to be balance. And I
Yeah.
know with your school, there's an integration between surf and SUP and yoga and meditation. Just talk to us about how that sort of all fits together. Because I think whatever one's religion, you do get an emotional or spiritual feeling from being in the water.
Yeah. So for me, like one of the main reason for the school to start was myself, because I was injured and I was not allowed to compete for some time. And I always had these things what I had learned from Surfing Swami. And when I got a invitation from the other district to host a camp, and we would do our first camp was for very small kids. We did a stand-up paddling camp for them, and you have no idea like the response we got from a very small village who had no idea about what the sport was. They saw me doing it, and a lot of people came. And with that, we would teach them yoga, and we would teach them swimming, and we would taught them basic self rescue. And on the last day of the 21 day of the camp, nobody wants to go home. Nobody's ready to take the life jacket, and their parents are like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And I
Ah.
was like, it was a calling for me by the nature that I wanted to do something amazing for this community, and balance is very important. So for me, like if I go surfing in the morning, I always do stand up paddling in the evening, and I always do yoga the first thing I wake up in the morning, and meditation. So that balance was so important for me, and I wanted to share this knowledge to many more, and that's how we started like Surf Like a Girl. So it's one of a very important event which happens at the Cuddle Surf School, where we run discounts on Women's Day, and like to any woman from any part of the world, any part of India, no matter what profession you do, we get like 30 to 40 women from very different backgrounds, and we host the surf lessons, and we do yoga camp for them together, and we have meals together which is cooked locally, in our homes. And these things like really inspired me. Like in the beginning I didn't know, like, how do I like structure this school, like, how do I balance things out, because even as I was growing up, we wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to bed at 8. And everybody were like, oh my god, this is a lifestyle you live. And I'm like, yeah, and it's really fun because I have more time to surf because I wake up early in the morning. Then I also finish my education because I feel like I love the balance, I enjoy most it every part of what I do every day in my life.
That's all
Yeah.
anyone could ever hope for in life, isn't it? And that's absolutely clear through your journey. So you mentioned it earlier, your journey to stand up paddleboard, how you took up surfing, and you mentioned that you developed a love of the ocean. It sounded like you had that anyway, but that was sort of accelerated by the actions of your grandfather there to encourage you to surf. And when I think back to my grandparents, I had a great bond with all of them, but there was one who used to take us out, me and my brothers out, to do like really risky activities that our parents wouldn't have really approved of. And, they were sometimes a bit sketchy. And of course, as kids, we really loved that. And he used to say this thing that grandparents and grandchildren have a special bond because they're united against the common enemy, who obviously is the parents. And he was joking, obviously, but there's a sort of level of truth in that. Grandparents can be a little bit more, not necessarily follow the path necessarily that the parents would want. And so just tell us about that relationship with your grandparents, with your grandfather, and how that built your connection with the ocean and with surfing.
Okay. Um, First of all, like, I come from fisherman community, so my mom sides of the family specifically comes from the fisherman community, and my dad comes from a different community. So it was a marriage of two different community people, which is
Mhm.
very rare in our village. So my grandfather would go fishing, not all the time, but sometimes with his friends, because he used to work in the abroad. But when we were born, like he was settled in India, and he was relaxing all the time. But his way of relaxing was, because we stayed so close to the river and the ocean, he would like go in the boat, and very occasionally he would take my cousin and me in the boat rides. And every time we would go on the boat rides, we would be like, wow, what is this world, because we have only been on ground, we have never been into the water. So whenever we used to go and grandfather would show us like everything that's happening around, we would be like so like blown up, like what is this world, and we would be waiting when our grandfather would take us again to the same
Yeah.
place. So, and I and my cousin were very like so much attached to water. And even I initially don't know why, like in the beginning I was like, why do I like water so much, like I feel like the ocean just hugs me whenever I go to the beach. So my grandfather was like, when you like something, you don't need to run away from it. It's fine. So let's go surfing. So the first 3 years, my parents didn't know that. So I stay. I like during all the holidays, I used to come to my grandparents' house, which is like 20 minutes away from my parents' house. So the surfing place happens at my grandparents' place around the same area. So every time I got holidays, my rule was to go to my grandparents' house, and that's how I would go surfing. And my parents had no idea. My mom would be like, "Why are you getting tanned? Why is your hair getting blonde?" Whenever you come from your grandparents' place, you're like all lean because you're not chubby. And like I'm usually so chubby in the house because my mom like makes sure I eat really well. Because but when I go to my grandparents' house, like it's all about the playtime. So for the first 3 years, my grandparents would lie to my parents, and I would feel so bad because they would do a lot of settings so that I would go surf for at least 3 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the morning. And my
Mm.
grandfather had a bad time getting me out of the water because I would not want to come out of the water and would be like, "Oh, I want to catch one more wave, one more wave." And
That's a familiar feeling.
so after some time, my mom came to know about it, and she was really, really upset with my both the grandparents. And for 1 year, I was in the house, and I tried convincing my grandfather to tell my mom, and that was not working. So I had to tell my cousin and my best friend, who are really good swimmers, that they would convince my mom that I would go surfing, and they would take care of my safety. So my mom agreed on one point, and there was one more condition that I would never, get less marks in my school. So that was a deal that was signed. So if I'm always on top of my classes and I'm doing well there, and I balance it here as well. That's one of the main reason I was allowed to surf. If I would score less marks in the house, sealed, no going anywhere.
What was your mum's concern then, or what were your parents' concern with you going surfing?
Crazy, like she was so concerned, like if I'm so tanned, how am I going to live in this society. And I do a sport which nobody does and has ever done in my whole village. So she would be like, what are gonna, like, people gonna say about it? That's what she used to think initially. But then, like, she saw me work so hard, and one day she just came up to me and she's like, it doesn't matter what you say, if you're happy, and just go ahead and do it. Like, we are here to
Wow.
support you. And after that, it was really bad because the society would always come up to me and say that if you're tanned, who is gonna marry you? I'm like, oh my god, this doesn't matter at all. And I'm like, what's wrong with the complexion? For me, like, when
Yeah.
I'm in the ocean doesn't care, like, what gender I am, how old I am, where do I come from. I always have good time there, or everybody who comes to the ocean has a good time. And we learn so much from the ocean. Like, it's like I'm so aware about what's happening in the climate, and like with everything in our ocean and in our Mother Earth, only because I'm a surfer today. If I was not a surfer, I don't think so. I would be so aware about what's happening in a climate, the change that's happening. Now I'm so glad that I'm here.
So I'm interested just to take things back because you came through a fishing village. Obviously, now it's a surfing village, and it's something that I've
Yeah.
I've heard before from other stand-up paddle boarders. Casper Steinfeth raised a similar point because in his village it was a fishing village, and when you've got a tradition, years and years of fishing, the water and the sea is seen in a really different way. It's seen as a
Yeah.
workplace, and it's seen as a really dangerous place as well. Do you think that was sort of providing some of the sort of resistance in terms of society? I mean, obviously, you know, uh, you know, um, gender roles and so on is a massive thing. But in terms of resistance to water sports, do you think Jack Hebden sort of ran across any of that sort of stuff when he was trying to establish surf in India?
So in India it is same, but it's same all over India. So that's not gonna make much of a difference. But the fishing community, or like the most of the fishing community in India, they respect the ocean a lot. So whenever we have off season, we do have like religious prayers to the ocean, that saying thank you for helping them feed the family, taking care of the family. It
Mm,
is considered dangerous place as well. So they would always tell us that you should never be overconfident in the ocean, and always respect the power the ocean has. That's what we have been always taught. But as a girl, extra things were told so that I don't get into the water, saying that, oh, it's not meant for girls. You're not too strong enough to like survive in the ocean and all of that. But my grandfather was like, all that is like bullshit. Don't worry about it.
Well, there you go. Then that's sounds very similar, like mine. Just sort of crack on and
Yeah.
disregard all of that sort of stuff.
He's
And
just
how
very practical.
and what does your mum think about what you're doing now? I mean, clearly she's really supportive. She saw the love and so on that you had for the ocean, and after a year, I guess, sitting on the sidelines, realised that this wasn't something that was going to go away. You know, you've achieved so much already, and you're still really young. How does she feel about your journey and what you're doing at the moment?
She's very proud because she also has friends and they're all like as young as me. I'm sorry, I think it's a little dark here. That's fine, right? Okay. So my mom is very proud of me because my mom also has a lot of friends and all the kids are of my age, and they've not traveled the countries, the number of countries I have traveled. And for us, it's like a huge privilege, and it's an honor to go to another country to represent the country, so to
Mm.
represent India. So now my mom is very happy, but she's also very particular that I finish my education without fail. I get married as soon as possible. Like, I still get to hear that today, or like yesterday we had a conversation. She's like, when are you getting married? When is that going to happen? So and yeah, she's like, now you have come so far, keep working at it. And now she helps me if I need any kind of help. Like, sometimes I'm so busy with the lesson, so she sometimes cooks for me like really yummy food. She helps me, packs my bag and all of that. So she's very supportive now.
Excellent. And do you feel that, in a way, you're a bit of an inspiration to her as well?
Yeah, that's true because so from last 7 years, my dad has been like really sick, and for her to like take care of my dad and like just lead a normal life, because when one person is sick in the family, the whole family like just falls down. So for
Mm.
her to see me like be in the hospital, take care of everything, and then also like show up at work, show up at college. She's like, you are inspiring. Like, you're so young and you're able to do this. So she lives her life every day, like giving her 100%, giving more involvement in whatever she does.
And have you ever tempted your mum or other members of your family who aren't already surfers out on the water?
Oh yeah, I do have some of my cousins who surf really good now. They come to my surf school, and they're
Yeah. How
very
about your mum,
happy
though?
that.
How about your
Oh,
mum? Have you tempted her out on the SUP?
no, no, no. She's really scared of water.
So obviously there were the general family pressures which you dealt with and got through, but also social pressures out there as well. So,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you're still kind of encountering those as you go, but there's also the reaction from people all across the world to what you're doing and your
Yeah.
story.
Actually, you know what? Can I stop and say something? So I run a surf school, and I won like 7 nationals. I've gone to a World Cup, and I've done like pretty amazing things, I feel. But even today, when I go to like some family gatherings or weddings of my friends, the people in society in general who come up to me and say that, oh, Tanvi, why are you so tanned? You should become fair. And I'm like, I'm a national champion of the country now. You cannot say this to me.
Yeah.
And still people say this no matter how successful I am in my society, like with my education, or like
Mm.
with me doing the sport, which is so out of the box, And people still come up to me and say that, that's how crazy it is, even for me. Like, nowadays, I don't fight about it, but I just laugh at how the situation is.
Mm.
People just
Yeah.
don't grow sometimes.
And it just shows how deep the barriers are, really, in terms of doing what you've done. And it also makes it so incredible that, you've just
Yeah.
been so single minded and just achieved. And there's obviously a huge amount of barriers still to break down there. So, you're inspired by a lot of people. You inspire a lot of people. You mentioned April Zilg. um, earlier on, and clearly you both really connected. How did you come across April? Why was she here in your area of
Okay,
Mangalore?
so she was at the surf school. I was volunteering as a kid, and she had come to India with her husband because her husband had some work here. So that's how I met April, and yeah, that's a little about it. And I think we have been in touch from that time onwards. It's never gone.
Those conversations that you had with her on the water were about anything and everything. Was it skill based stuff? Was it finding out about her water history and racing?
Initially, I did not ask April those questions like how I used to ask her later. But then,
Mm,
like, initially, it was just for me, it was just to see her way in the water, you know. She would catch those waves on a stand up paddle board, on a race board, and I was so small, and I was like, how does she do that? Like, there is a photo in a cover photo in a Facebook. I still remember the photo where she's catching this beautiful wave in my hometown on a race board, and I'm like, how does she do that? And I still remember like going to the sea, racing on my stand-up paddle board, and it is so scary in the beginning because I was so small. But I
yeah.
used to always look at April, and I'm like, if April can do it, I can also do it. Like, so I used to always give it a try, and I did put a photo of me doing a stand-up paddling for the first time in the ocean, and April comments on it. And I was like, I was so happy. So she's so inspiring.
Yeah, well, I've been exchanging a few messages with her because she's one of the guests on this season as well, and she was really thrilled to hear that you were on, and said that you were a real inspiration for her as well. So I think it works in all directions. So so let's talk a bit about the racing. Obviously, you had your contact with April, and you
Yeah,
know there are a whole load of activities that you've been involved in, a whole load of races that you've been involved in. But I think one of the key sort of landmark events was the ISA Championships in Fiji.
yeah.
You were the first person from India to compete there. Obviously, the first woman as well. So how did that all come about? How did you manage to sort of get out there? Because Fiji's not the easiest place to get
Yeah.
to, even from India, which is sort of more or less, I mean, more or less sort of in that general region of the world. Just tell us that
Yeah.
story about how you got to the race.
So yeah, so I begin with winning like couple of nationals, like always like back to back, and I never missed any gold medals. And I used to train every single day, like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, and um, like the people who trained me or who supported me when I used to volunteer at the surf school, they really like saw me like the time and effort I was putting up to, and I got a call from the Surfing Federation of India to represent in the ISS Stand Up Paddling World Cup, and that was so amazing. And for me, I have been dreaming for that for like a really long time. And when I got a chance, the first thing that came to my head is like, how am I gonna manage for so much money? Because it is so expensive to go to Fiji,
Mm,
and I did not have like a I did not know like how to carry my equipment over there because I used to use a very good board to train here, which April had kept here in the surf school for like us to train, and that board was so good. And I'm like, how am I gonna carry such a big equipment to Fiji? And they're like, oh, we cannot do that, but we can rent some other board over there. And I was like, okay, because I'm so used to like paddle with one board, and I had to go to a new board. It was very, very challenging for me.
mm,
But a big miracle happened. So my whole family, my friends, and the supporters of the surf school I used to volunteer, they crowdfunded for me all together, and we were able to arrange a huge amount, and I was able to fly to Fiji. And it is such a historical moment for me because first time India is going to go to the World Cup in stand up paddling, and it's never happened before. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of pressure on me. But then like you go to ISA and you meet all the athletes, they're so amazing. I still remember my first conversation with them, And it is really, really amazing to meet everybody. And there is like day zero ceremony where you carry the sand from India and go to the World Cup. And there is like a glass box where everybody puts sand into that, and the
Mm.
beautiful layers of the sand just shows the unity the sport represents. So that was really very beautiful. And I was very nervous because I'm going to be competing with some of the best athletes in the whole world. Because even taking inspiration from April to train, I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos on a couple of tricks, and I was gonna be competing with the people who were sharing tricks and like tips on how to like paddle fast, who have been to more events than me. But when I was in the race line, my grandfather had passed by then in 2016. So I used to really miss him. I was like, it would be so amazing if my grandfather would accompany me. But his voice was
Mm.
playing in my head just before the race started. That you are a little girl who have come from India, and do not worry about what the result is going to be, because this is your first time and you worked really hard to come here. So just do your best, and you're going to inspire a lot of people back in India. And just go for it. So when the whistle blew and the race began, I paddled in the beautiful waters of Fiji, and I was so thankful for all the people who have come out and help me. I'm still thankful for them and will always be, because they made my first World Cup so successful. And when I was reaching the finish line, everybody was so happy to see a young girl finish the race, because it was a tough race. Because it was really hot, and it was my first World Cup, and everybody was shouting India, India, and it was so amazing. Like everybody was splashing water.
Yeah, I mean, and there's great footage of you coming across the line and with all of that support and the Indian flag there as well. So, um,
Yes.
so the kit that you ended up on, what was that? Was that was the hired board? Was it?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
yes.
what worked out? And what was that like? Because obviously it's really difficult to compete at the best time. Particularly when 16 as you were, by any standard, you were really young to compete. You're competing for the first time in India, and you're competing on a board that you're just not used to. Even getting across the finishing line, I guess, is a massive achievement in that. But tell me
Yeah.
about the board.
Yeah, so I did get like a really good race board. I think it was from Big BIC. That's the
Hmm.
board I used for the race. But it was an incredible board. I really loved racing. I was like, oh, this is a new board. It's really nice. It's fast and it's so much fun. And I did not get much time to focus on how the board was, because I was so nervous about the race.
Hmm.
But I really enjoyed paddling on it. I have no complaints.
Amazing, amazing. And the
Yeah.
footage is available. We'll link to that video in the show notes. And I guess, as part of that competition, you built some really good contacts there. Was that where your relationship with Starboard started?
My relationship with Starboard started when April invited me to US. April
Mm.
had raised funds so that I can come to USA and train and compete with over there. That's when I met Fiona and many more athletes over there, and that's where Starboard reached out to me, and they were like, "We can give you a board," and I was like, "It would be an honor to ride the Starboard." And that's how my relationship with Starboard became more deeper. But I did meet a lot of Starboard athletes in my first World Cup, and they're all so amazing and so
Yeah.
sweet.
This is the SUPfm podcast with my guest Tanvi Jagadish, and we'll be right back. As always, a huge thank you to Starboard, who are once again this season's main sponsors. Starboard has a history of innovation across water sports, starting in 1994 by revolutionising the design of windsurf boards, and they've brought that bang up to date recently, bringing foil windsurfing onto the Olympic stage with their IQ foil package. Starboard got behind stand-up paddleboarding in a huge way in the early days and continue to lead the industry to reduce their environmental impact. Their focus on innovation brought them 7 world champions at the ICF Worlds last year, and all of them were using their Lima paddle range. They continue to improve and innovate their boards and their paddles for all abilities across all flavours of the sport, including adventure. And you can find out more about Starboard through their website, which is linked to in the show notes. And now for the rest of my conversation with Tanvi Jagadish. It is that atmosphere on the tour which seems to be consistent, and all the athletes that I speak to say exactly the same. Obviously, it's elbows out and game face on when you're on the water in a good and fair way, but it's that atmosphere off the water which is really special.
It's very, very special. I don't know. It's an honor to be part of the stand-up paddling community, because it's so beautiful inside and outside water. Because everyone is so amazing. Like, I never felt anything bad about it, like, till date, and I hope it never happens. But like, it's been so amazing to be, because everybody's so nice. And for me, initially, like, I was so young and I had so many questions when I used to ask people, and they used to so patiently tell me. Like, I met so many athletes, and they're like really big, like, experienced athletes, and I would have so many questions, and I would like ask them, like, even with April. But like, they used to be so nice to me and like explain everything to me so nicely.
And I'm sure they had a few questions for you because you've done what they haven't done, which is being the first there. But you mentioned that you came over to the States, and I think that was in 2017. And April invited you out there, and you got on the podium in a couple of the competitions as well.
Yeah.
And that was also the year, I think, where you won Grom of the Year from SUP Connect.
Yes.
Previous Valeria Celestri and Fiona Wild. I mean, that must have been really special. Talk us through those wins, and then also that formal recognition, because that was different, because that was recognition from the sport for what you'd done.
Yeah. So for me, going to US was a very, very big dream come true, because one of my dad's younger sisters stays in US, and she used to always tell me like how beautiful USA is. So when April initiated the conversation, and I wanted to also go train with her, and I was like, how is it going to be possible to raise so much funds? But April did so much work, and she put so much work into it, and she did the fundraising, and I was able to go, and she hosted me in USA. And I stayed at April's house, and like, it's so special. Like, for me, I was like so lucky to get to do all that. And then went training with April every day. It was my first time surfing in cold water. So we went surfing also at Westfield Beach, and it was so beautiful. I was so scared initially, because when you're in cold water and you fall into the water, I'm like, I don't know what to do. It's so cold. I've never, because it's so warm here all the time. I've never ever surfed in cold water. So that was an experience for me. So I had two events to participate. I had participated in a sub surf event, and I also participated in a race which was of an age category like below 18. And I won third in both the races, and it was so nice. And I met like so many amazing athletes, and yeah, it was like really nice. And after, like, I come back to India, like, it was crazy. Like, I had like good media coverage on it, and like everybody is like speaking, oh, then we went to US and all of that. And I'm going to like the World Cup, like the 2017 World Cup of ISA, which was happening in Denmark. And around the same time, the SUP Connect put up my name in the website, and I'm one of the nominee over there. And like, I'm like, how do I get these votes? Like, how do I win this? And I was not very sure about it, so I did share it to some of my friends. And after some time, I came to know that I did win the award. And even when I'm getting felicitations in India, and I gave a couple of TED talks in India. I go to like a lot of colleges in India as a chief guest. like they clearly mentioned about this award. So it's really really very special for me.
Well, it's incredible and amazing recognition. And then just to sort of finish off, I guess, on the racing just for the moment, you competed in
Yeah.
the Singapore Ocean Cup in
Yeah.
2017. So just
Hmm.
tell us about that competition, because you ramped up to the same competition in 2018 and you got very different results, didn't you? Tell us about that and your history with that race.
So I fell in love with Singapore when I went in 2017 because I also have one of my student who stays there. So he hosted us at his house place. So I was very comfortable. I used to go training. It's a whole different community. I did not meet anybody from Singapore before. I went to any of the races. So it was my first time, competing in Asia, like other than India. So it was nice, but it was very challenging because the seas were pretty rough, because there used to be such big boats passing by, but from very far. But the ripples were like really, really rough.
Mm.
So the first race didn't go that great, and I kind of knew, like, how the race was in 2017. So 2018, I kind of like prepped myself, and I really wanted to do my best. More than being on the podium, because everybody I was competing with, like, really amazing athletes. So to come third in 2018 was an honor for me. It was such a beautiful experience. People in Singapore are like really very nice.
And again on the podium there as well, that was a phenomenal performance. So
Yeah.
we're here, we're 5 years after the SUP Connect Award. We're getting
Yes.
back to all the new normal after all the shutdowns we've had. You're now an entrepreneur and the co-founder of Cadell Centre for SUP, Surf and Yoga. How did
Yeah.
that business come about? And it sounds like you're not the only SUP school in the area, but you've certainly celebrity supper in the area. That's got to be a bit of a benefit.
Yeah.
Tell us about the creation of your business.
Okay, so Kadil, one of the main reason for it to start is a very good friend of mine, Rohan. So when I was injured, and I was not very pretty sure about what I'm gonna do next, but I never wanted to be away from this sport for sure, and I was definitely figuring out what to do for my undergrad. So I moved to Udupi along with Rohan, because Rohan is from Udupi, where my surf school is located in Karnataka, India. So we hosted our first camp. I was telling you about how the kids camp went well. So we were like, why don't we set up a small school? But we do not have an infrastructure or a land. So we asked one of our very good family friend, proposed us his space. So we would like so they had like a toddy cafe. So toddy is basically alcohol which is made of a coconut, so it's a very traditional drink for us here, and
Mm.
it's very famous and it has a lot of health benefits. So he has a beautiful cafe with like shacks and all, and he's like, why don't you guys run the surf school from here, because students would also get to eat yummy food after surfing. So that's how we started the surf school from his place called as Kalyuga Toddy Cafe at Malpe Beach in
Mm.
Udupi, Karnataka state. And when we started the camp, and people came to know that it is run by a female, a girl runs a surf school in India. We got a huge response, and I was very afraid if girls would show up or no, but I think I underestimated my girls who didn't, who I thought who's not gonna come. We got a beautiful response. We got so many girls who came and learned surfing with me, and their parents also would call up to me saying that, thank you so much, Tanvi, for taking care of them when they were at your place. So I think it's so beautiful, like when you uh, are so passionate about something and you want it, like you give it all your heart, and like things go so beautifully. I mean, I did have a lot of struggles because I do not come from a family which is into business or entrepreneurship. So like simple as, like, hiring right people to the team, and like having volunteers, training them, building the team slowly. I did have a lot of challenges, but I think I'm learning a lot. like on the go.
Everyone is making it up as they go along, I guess, in terms of entrepreneurship. You don't know what
Yeah,
skills you need until you actually get there. But you mentioned
yeah,
earlier on about some of the initiatives, Surf Like a Girl events. I know you do
yeah.
beach cleanups and all of that sort of stuff. Just tell us a bit more about Surf for a Girl, you deciding to
Okay.
do that, and how that's landed.
So, as Cuddle itself, just by having a female instructor, we do get a lot of girls. But I was like, we wanted to do Surf Like a Girl by giving like a 50% discount and like running this whole event where we teach them surfing, we teach them yoga. Like, one of a very good friend of mine comes along with me to teach yoga. So, that's to encourage more girls in India who sometimes do not come surfing because maybe it was expensive, maybe they did not get holiday, maybe they wanted more girls around them. So to create this beautiful community, and so that they can make more friends in this community, and encourage them to take that leap and do surfing and
Mm,
do like so. Like till today I did not have like enough stand-up paddle boards to host the stand-up paddling camp, but things are changing right now. I'm definitely gonna like I think something to do with stand-up paddling for the next Women's Day, because we're slowly having more boards, and I really wanted to do something for stand-up paddling and surfing because that would be so amazing, right? So this time I think it's going to be a different Surf Like a Girl in 2023, because this year's 2022 Surf Like a Girl was so beautiful. Like so many girls came and they surfed really good.
mm.
So it was a 3 days and a 5 days camp, and it was so amazing.
Amazing. And do you find that those girls who come along to those initial camps continue with surfing beyond it? I mean, do you see them round and about and doing their thing?
Yeah,
I know that my introduction to stand up paddle, it didn't take me. I mean, I had a horrendous experience. Really, I still got the bug, and so it doesn't take
yeah.
much to get people started, does it?
Yeah, so like I always tell my students as well. So whenever you're learning your foundation, like I really make sure you guys have a very good experience, because that really matters a lot. Even
Mm,
my friends, I do tell, like whenever you're choosing a surf school or a stand-up paddling school, like read about it, like understand who is going to be teaching you. You can ask questions. People in this community are really nice. So I always make sure the foundation or their initial experience with surfing was nice. That's why we had a lot of people who'd come back and surfing again and again. And now some of them are doing really good. They would just come rent a board and surf on their own now. So we do have like really good surfers now.
amazing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like surfing, stand up paddle boarding is sort of really expanding in the country. And one of the things that we noticed in the UK, particularly coming out of some of those COVID lockdowns, is everyone suddenly was on a stand up paddle board. Sometimes that was good news, sometimes that wasn't so good news. But anyway, that the sport seems to have really sort of taken off. I don't know, is it the
Yeah.
same in India?
So during COVID, it was terrible for us because we were not allowed to do anything. We were not allowed to go to the sea nor run by the beach. Like we were made to sit in the house, and it was so
Mm,
challenging for somebody who beats in the water all day like me. But immediately when the COVID was out, and whenever we used to get this like no lockdown time, we would get such a huge response, and it was very challenging for me and my very small team to like run the surf school, because a lot of people would come surfing and stand up paddling. Even right now, like even if there's monsoon, we do get enquiries like, oh, is the sub classes on? I know the surfing is closed because of monsoon, because the monsoon in India for from June to September is crazy.
yeah.
Like nobody's allowed to get into the water. But we do have monsoon mangrove kayaking and stand up paddling happening, so it's really beautiful. We have a nice place where we do this.
And what about female instructors? Are you seeing sort of an increase in female instructors out there?
Oh, it's very less right now in India, like countable numbers, but
Really?
I'm sure that will take its time. And
Mm.
even I'm personally looking at people who would be interested to come and, teach with me at Cuddle Surf School. It'd be really amazing to have more female instructors in the school. So I'm really working at it now. So if anybody is interested, please, you're welcome to come volunteer with us, teach with us.
It's a really good sort of extension. So if you're into stand-up paddling anywhere,
Yeah,
whether you're in India or anywhere else, it's a whole new way of exploring the sport. There is joy in seeing that spark in people's faces when they suddenly get it, and that they've got that joy of being on the
yeah.
water. It's phenomenally rewarding. So there we go. Contact Tanvi. All contact details will be in the show notes if you want to be an instructor
Yeah.
around the school.
We also run this volunteering program at the surf school. So if somebody wants to experience the true culture, because sometimes when they come surfing, you're here for 3 days or 5 days. For stand up paddling, sometimes you're here for like a day or two. So we started this volunteering program at the surf school where they could help us at the surf school, and they can stay with us for like 1 or 2 months, and we would take care of their food and accommodation, and they can experience the local surfing culture and the culture of Udupi, which is a beautiful temple town. So
Wow.
like we started doing this volunteering program, and it was really amazing. We got such a wonderful response because it's I think it was all about giving people opportunity and giving this experience because it's so rare and so beautiful.
And then just looking sort of wider, so stand up paddle surf, it's expanding from,
Yeah,
really quickly, because bearing in mind Surf Swami was sort of there in the early noughties, founding this club, and it's really sort of
yeah,
expanded since then. If someone was coming to India with their stand up paddleboard, they were going to do a bit of exploring,
yeah,
in various locations. Where would, I mean, obviously we start with your beach, that's
yeah.
taken as read, but where else in the country would be your recommendations for a bit of exploration? Because you've got rivers, you've got lakes, you've got
Yeah.
beautiful coast.
So I have not explored the north of India much. I have not visited personally properly as well. But I dream to do more camps in all states of India because we have like so many states in India. So like that's one of the initiative I wanted to do with my friend to spread the stoke of SUP in India. But if you want to do stand up paddling in India, from Goa to Maharashtra to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, all these places and Kerala have some beautiful places
Mm.
to do stand up paddling. And the best way to is to go to the surf school, which is situated at these places, and they'll be the best guide to like tell you like where exactly you can do the sport. And we have a lot of place to do stand up paddling. Like I think stand up paddling is such a wonderful sport because you just need a waterboard. You can surf in, you can do stand up paddling on a pond, lake, ocean, all the way to catching waves. And even there's so many beautiful rivers in India. So there are so many places to do stand up paddling. You just have to come to India.
Unexplored, and looking at the footage of your beach and the conditions there, I mean, it looks absolutely idyllic. So one of the things that we kind of skirted over a little bit earlier on, but worth exploring, certainly I'd like to find out more about it, is you mentioned your TED experiences and also going out there and speaking in schools and so on. So how did your TED invite come about, and how was it speaking on that stage? Because
Yeah.
I would have been terrified.
Yeah, so as during my whole childhood experience in school, I had never went to a stage and spoken so confidently. But in my 11th standard, I was invited to an engineering college very close to my house called as National Institute of Technology Karnataka, NITK. So I gave my first talk over there, and it was with students who were like studying engineering, and I was very nervous about it. So some of my students with whom I taught surfing, they kind of helped me to like script it down and
Mm.
teach me how to speak, and I was so nervous about it. But then like when I was on the stage and I gave a talk about how my experience is, I could see everybody's eyes were like glitters. They were so happy, they were so emotional, and they were like so inspired. And after the talk, everybody's clapping so loudly, and I'm like, did I give such a good talk? And I was like, I'm so bad at speaking. And that was my first start of like giving my first talk. And I was like, uh, when the TED came, I was terrified because they have so many rules and regulations, and like how you have to speak, what are the things you cannot mention. But I gave my talk of TED in RVC college, and even the people out there, like I just came from my World Cup in Denmark, stayed there at the campus for some time, prepared my speech, and then gave my talk, and it was so amazing. Like everybody in my school group were like so happy that I gave a TED talk, because it's a huge achievement for us, because it's not so easy to give TED talk here. So like when they approached me, I was like, "Whoa, I'm giving a TED talk."
Your nerves definitely didn't come over. I was in there with you, so I mean, it was a cracking performance. And in terms of educating girls and so on the journey and the experience that you've done,
Yeah.
you engage more widely, don't you, in terms of schools and so on?
Yeah, I did like go to like some schools, some colleges, like, and I think social media is like a very important tool to like spread the awareness of the sport in the
Mm,
country. So I'm just doing my bit, because last 3 months have been very bad for me, because my dad's very serious. So like I had to take some break from competing in my nationals,
mm.
teaching. So like my team has been handling right now we are just two people in the team, and so they have been handling a lot of things for me, and I'm grateful for them. Yeah.
But I think obviously it's tough, and I really appreciate you spending this time with me today, and obviously all the best, to your father and your family as well.
Thank
So
you.
you're known internationally. You've been recognised by the sport. You've spoken on the TED stage. You've been the first to represent India in competition, and you're a seven-time national champion. And you're a role model to many women and girls across the world. So what's next? Because you're still really young. You've done so much already, and there's still plenty of barriers still up, and there's still a continuing job to help others connect with the sport. So what's next for Tanvi?
Uh, I still don't know, because with what after what happened to dad, like I'm like so much in the house now, because
Mm,
like I'm the only kid, for him. So I do take care of a lot of things. So I'm praying that I get to like train and go back into competing, like just as how God is gonna let me do this. And of course, like it is my dream to like create a bigger team to go compete for India. And like it's been my dream since a kid to see more girls do this sport. I think it's all about the opportunity. So like through the school, Cuddle Surf School, I'm definitely gonna like uh, create this safe environment and like a fun environment where people come to learn this sport. Everybody has fun, and they also understand about like what an important role Mother Ocean plays in our life, because she's alive, and it is our duty being ocean athletes to take care of her. So that is one of the biggest motto of the school. So like I look up to it every single day, wake up in the morning, even if I'm at my parents' house not getting into the water, I'm always thinking about like what can I do next for my community, what best I can do to like help this sport grow in a beautiful way, like how Surfing Swami did for India. So I'm just doing a little, I
Well,
think.
no, I couldn't think of any other speech to end the interview on, Tanvi. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best to Rowan and the team over at Cadell
Yeah.
Surfs, SUP and Yoga, and we wish you all the best for the future and to your family. And we look forward to ISA holding their World Cup in Mulki, India. It sounds like it will be the ideal location. Tanvi, where can we find out more about you online?
Yeah, so Instagram is one of the best way you can like find me. Indian surfer girl, and you get to see what I do every single day, how we run the surf school and everything.
Tanvi, it's been an absolute pleasure. Take care, and maybe one day we'll meet on the water.
Yes.